Lesson 59, Collecting. We'll talk about collecting as a hobby in this text. First, listen to the text with this question. What in particular does a person gain when he or she becomes a serious collector?
People tend to amass possessions, sometimes without being aware of doing so. Indeed, they can have a delightful surprise when they find something useful which they did not know they owned. Those who never have to move house become indiscriminate collectors of what can only be described as clutter. They leave unwanted objects in drawers, cupboards and attics for years, in the belief that they may one day need just those very things. As they grow old, people also accumulate belongings for two other reasons: lack of physical and mental energy, both of which are essential in turning out and throwing away, and sentiment. Things owned for a long time are full of associations with the past, perhaps with relatives who are dead, and so they gradually acquire a value beyond their true worth. Some things are collected deliberately in the home in an attempt to avoid waste. Among these, I would list string and brown paper, kept by thrifty people when a parcel has been opened, to save buying these two requisites. Collecting small items can easily become a mania. I know someone who always cuts sketches out from newspapers of model clothes that she would like to buy if she had the money. As she is not rich, the chances that she will ever be able to afford such purchases are remote, but she is never sufficiently strong-minded to be able to stop the practice. It is a harmless habit, but it litters up her desk to such an extent that every time she opens it, loose bits of paper fall out in every direction. Collecting as a serious hobby is quite different and has many advantages. It provides relaxation for leisure hours, as just looking at one's treasures is always a joy. One does not have to go outside for amusement, since the collection is housed at home. Whatever it consists of, stamps, records, first editions of books, china, glass, antique furniture, pictures, model cars, stuffed birds, toy animals. There is always something to do in connection with it, from finding the right place for the latest edition to verifying facts in reference books. This hobby educates one not only in the chosen subject, but also in general matters which have some bearing on it. There are also other benefits. One wants to meet like-minded collectors, to get advice, to compare notes, to exchange articles, to show off the latest find. So one's circle of friends grows. Soon the hobby leads to travel, perhaps to a meeting in another town, possibly a trip abroad in search of a rare specimen, for collectors are not confined to any one country. Over the years, one may well become an authority on one's hobby, and will very probably be asked to give informal talks to little gatherings, and then, if successful, to larger audiences. In this way, self-confidence grows, first from mastering a subject, then from being able to talk about it. Collecting, by occupying spare time so constructively, makes a person contented, with no time for boredom.
So what will a person gain if he or she becomes a serious collector? He or she can gain contentment, relaxation, self-confidence, and he or she will have no time for boredom. This text deals with a familiar topic of hobby, the hobby of collecting, but it combines both generalizations and specific examples. The author actually puts the collectors into 3 groups, each paragraph focusing on one particular group. The first paragraph is about indiscriminate collectors. Old people are among them who are unwilling to get rid of things because they don't have the energy or because of sentiment. The second paragraph is about thrifty collectors, but the author gives us an example to show that such savings may not really be put into use. The last paragraph deals with serious collectors and about the advantages serious collecting has. Right, now we'll look at some language points. People tend to amass possessions. Amass means to get a large amount of something, especially money or information, over a long period of time. Here in the text we have amass possessions. In this example, she has amassed a huge fortune or wealth over years. Become indiscriminate collectors. Indiscriminate means not showing careful thinking or planning, especially so that harm results. So indiscriminate collectors means those people who do not choose what to collect. Look at these examples. She is completely indiscriminate in spending money. She is completely lacking plans in spending money. Indiscriminate attacks by terrorists on civilians are still occurring. 恐怖分子对平民进行的盲目攻击。In turning out and throwing away. Turning out here means taking things out. Look at one more example. The boy turned out his pockets and found a few coins and a sticky sweet. 把口袋里的东西掏空。Two reasons include lack of energy and sentiment. Sentiment means feeling or thought, opinion, based on a kind of feeling. For example, a critical essay should not appeal to sentiment. 一个评论性的文章不应当诉诸情感。Nationalist sentiment has increased in the area since the bombing. Nationalist sentiment, 民族情绪。Among these, I would list string and brown paper. List here is being used as a verb, meaning make a list. For example, I've listed my key points on the handout. I've put my key points in a list on the handout. The guidebook lists the top 10 tourist attractions in Beijing. The guidebook provides the list for the top 10 attractions. Two requisites. Requisites are usually used in plural form. It's a formal way of saying the necessary conditions. Here it refers to the fact that these two things, string and brown paper, are necessary things for packaging. Look at this example. What qualifications are the requisites of this job? What qualifications are the necessary conditions? Collecting small items can easily become a mania. Mania here means craze. Notice, in this sense, it's a disapproving word. For example, Beatlemania swept Britain in the 60s. It refers to the craze people held for the Beatles, for the band. The other sense of mania is madness or mental disorder. For example, Van Gogh suffered from acute persecution mania. 梵高患有迫害狂症。The person who is crazy about something is a maniac. For example, he's a football maniac, which means he's crazy about the game. Maniacal is the adjective. For example, the disease causes maniacal behavior, causes crazy behavior. Who always cuts sketches out from newspapers of model clothes. 草图. Sketch basically means drawing. For example, he made a pencil sketch of his mother knitting. 他画了一张他母亲织毛衣的铅笔速写. The introduction to the book provides a sketch of its contents. A sketch here means a short writing piece in order to sum up, a gist. The chances that she will ever be able to afford such purchases are remote. The chances are remote means the chances are slight. It's not likely. Let's look at more examples to look at what meanings remote has in different contexts. A remote area, referring to a distant area. We can also use remote to describe a distant time. For example, remote past or remote future. I haven't the remotest idea about what he was talking about. I haven't the remotest idea means I don't know at all. He changed channels on the TV with the remote control. The remote control, 遥控. She is never sufficiently strong-minded. Strong-minded means determined, fixed on certain purpose. There's another adjective starting with strong prefix, strong-willed. The meaning is different. Strong-willed means so determined as to be stubborn, 固执的. She's so strong-willed that if she's decided on something, nothing will stop her. It litters up her desk to such an extent that every time she opens it, loose bits of paper fall out. To such an extent that means so much that. I'll give you more examples. The car was damaged to such an extent that it would be useless to repair it. The car was damaged so seriously that it would be useless to repair it. Sales have fallen to such an extent that we will have to close some of our shops. Sales have fallen so greatly that we'll have to close some shops. The collection is housed at home. House here is being used as a verb, meaning the collection is contained at home. Look at more examples. The electric and gas meters are housed in the storeroom. These 2 meters are put in the storeroom or installed in the storeroom. The museum houses the biggest collection of antiques in Europe. This museum provides space for the biggest collection of antiques in Europe. General matters which have some bearing on it. Have some bearing on something is a fixed expression, meaning be related with something or have influence upon something. Here it means some general matters which are related with the hobby or the subject of the hobby. We can also use a or no or any to replace some in this expression. For example, his remark had some bearing on what happened, which means his remark was to some degrees related to what happened. Or his remark had a bearing on what happened, was related. Or his remark had no bearing on what had happened. His remark was not related to what happened. If we use have any bearing, then it's used in a negative structure. His remark didn't have any bearing on what happened. One wants to meet like-minded collectors. Like-minded means those who can share your interest. For example, as a dedicated football fan herself, she started the magazine for like-minded women. for those women who shared the interest of football game. We can also use the noun form of like mind. For example, on this point, we are of like mind. On this point, we share each other's opinions. Compare notes. It's a fixed expression, meaning exchange information and opinion, and informally. For example, when we were roommates, we compare notes on everything: clothes, music, teachers, and men. We talked or chatted with each other informally and exchanged opinions on all these things. Possibly a trip abroad in search of a rare specimen. Specimen means something shown or examined as an example, a specimen of something you collected. I'll give you more examples. He has a collection of rare insect specimens. 昆虫标本. The doctor took a specimen of blood from the patient's arm. A specimen of blood means the small amount of blood used for testing, 抽的血样. Collectors are not confined to any one country. Be confined to means be limited in. So collectors do not only exist in any one country. Look at more examples. We are asked to confine our use of the telephone to business calls alone, which means to limit our use of the telephone to those calls for work. This attitude seems to be confined to the upper class. Only the upper class holds such an attitude. One may well become an authority on one's hobby. An authority here means an expert on one's hobby. Let's look at more examples to see what authority can mean in different contexts. He is a world authority on Shakespeare. He is a world expert on Shakespeare study. The United Nations has used its authority to restore peace in the region. Authority here means the official right. I gave my lawyer authority to act on my behalf. Authority here means the legal permission. Finally, let's look at how the author lists things and describe things in a range or in a process in this text. Whatever it consists of, stamps, records, first editions, china, glass, antique furniture, etc., there is always something to do in connection with it, from finding the right place to verifying facts in reference books. So here, whatever is the object of consist of, and then this long list provides examples for whatever. And the main clause, there is always something to do in connection with it, actually is about a range, with the structure of from, to, defining the range. One wants to meet like-minded collectors, to get advice, to compare notes, to exchange articles, to show off the latest find. So the same structure want to, with want omitted in later parts, is used to emphasize that all of these things are the benefits of a serious hobby. In this way, self-confidence grows, first from mastering a subject, then from being able to talk about it. First of all, there's a clue of the verb, grow, and then the structure, first from, then from, clearly lay out the process of development of one's confidence. So this text is about how collecting can become a constructive hobby. In other words, not everything we do in our spare time can be a constructive hobby. A good hobby should be able to provide us with not only entertainment and relaxation, but also contentment and pleasure. A person without any hobbies must certainly be a bore. But if somebody spends too much time on his or her hobbies, or has too many hobbies, then this person will be called a hobbyist, 就是类似中文说的玩物丧志的人。If that is the case, then the hobby stops being a hobby, but becomes a kind of obsession. But more often than not, when we grow up, we simply have no time to develop our hobbies. It's really a shame that only the very young and the very old have time to pursue their own hobbies. So much on the topic of hobby. See you next time.